Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's get into the live stream. Give me an audio check. Let me know how the audio sounds, and we'll just jump right in. All right, probably go for 45 minutes or so this morning. We'll see how things go. And I'll start off with the broad market analysis, and then I'll just get into any charts you guys want me to look at, and we will wrap it up. All right, triple Qs, you can see, there's not a whole lot that's changed, but basically on Friday, we had this support line on the daily chart, and there we go. And we broke it. It did break there on the triple Qs. Let's look at the futures. And again, this is just the daily chart. Here's NASDAQ futures. And the NASDAQ futures, pretty much closed at support, I would say. And that's why you want to look at both. Never just look at like one. You want to look at both. To me, this looks like support, all right? Looks like we closed at support on the futures there. And then if I look at the S&P 500, the SPY, that looks like it closed on support. And then if we look at the ES, the S&P 500 futures, let's see, mark this out, kind of draw it out. Yeah, that one's, well above the, well above support there. So, nothing's really technically broken in the markets. So I didn't go home short on triple Qs. I just went flat, essentially. You could be looking for a bounce trade. I was looking for that bounce trade on Friday on triple Qs. We just didn't really get it. They just kept selling it down. Just didn't get the bounce trade. It might show up on Monday. Maybe it doesn't. But in general, I'd be leaning towards a rally, a bounce trade, just because I see these indices sitting on support. So I'd be leaning towards that. And then obviously if it goes the other way and instead of a bounce trade, we see the other indices actually breaking support, then that is, that's a sell signal. That's a longer term sell signal on the daily chart, which would indicate, a reverse of trend and likely heading lower. So that's what I'm looking for. Whether, one or the other. Right now, leaning towards the bounce trade. On the weekly chart for triple Qs, we had the bearish engulfing right there. So you want to see follow through, more selling essentially. Doesn't have to happen next week. You can kind of just idle or even grind a little higher, just as long as you don't really take out the top. All right, bearish engulfing, you can treat that as a top as long as you don't get a weekly close above that top. A weekly close above the top would negate that as a bearish engulfing topping stick on the weekly. But as long as that holds, then that is indicating, and this is a weekly chart, so that's indicating kind of a more major top. And then if I look at the SPY, same thing, bearish engulfing there, very clean bearish engulfing on the SPY. So again, we can treat this as the top on the weekly chart, just as long as you don't get, and you could mark it at the body of the candle or the actual wick, but you really just don't want to see a weekly close above that 565.20. It can pop up there intra-week, which means, at some point during a day or so it can be up there, but just on the weekly close, the Friday close, you don't want to see that weekly close above there. So you could treat that, and again, the weekly chart is usually good for long-term trend trading, more buy and hold, or just longer-term positions. So, yeah, in general, it looks to me like we've topped out in the markets. Until that's negated, I would be treating that as a top. And, again, we break this trend line on the weekly, then we're likely going to see, a pretty good push to the downside. That's it on those. IWM, that's the small caps. That's obviously, this is where the rotation's been taking place, or that's the narrative they've been floating out there. Let me go down to the daily. On the daily, yeah, nice little, pop up and then break of trend there. You had this, this is a shooting star doji, I think is what that's called, or maybe there's some other name, firefly, I don't know. In general, you look for kind of a long wick and then a body down at the end. That's a doji reversal candle followed by more selling. So that indicates, kind of that reversal in place on the IWM. So I see some more downside on this one. And then if I go to the weekly's got that's a big reversal candle on the weekly. So yeah, I mean, I think we're probably going to see more selling. And the other thing on this one is, you still have that negative divergence. Regardless of this breakout narrative that everybody's saying or this rotation, you still have, it's divergence. It's negative divergence. So if we come down, it's going to confirm that negative divergence. And this is literally just a divergent high that will get sold into, or most likely will get sold into. That's the way I'm leaning right now. This thing's got a lot of banks in it. So I was looking at this KRE. That one's at resistance. You can see here on the weekly, resistance, and there it is. So that's the trade I put out in the private member group. And then I'm trying to think about what else is really that interesting in terms of broad analysis. Here's financials, XLF. Again, it did pop up, but we're just extending the divergence that's been in place for a while. You can kind of just extend it out like that. All right, momentum is still dropping. Especially, see the PPO, it's still like higher, lower, this is basic, a little higher than that previous one, but still lower than that. So yeah, that's what I'd look for. And then, it looks weak. Sectors, trying to think what else. XLK, obviously tech. Another way to look at tech, and again, XLK can come down a little bit more. So the triple Qs, broke that support, but XLK can come down a little bit more. So we'll see what Monday brings for that sector. XLV still above support, and then the major thing, like when you look at these FANGs, these mega caps, like Nvidia, that's the key one. We really, when I look at that, I see this thing closing basically on support right there at 117.50-ish. So it closed at support. Google. Actually, this is the one I've been charting, GOOGL. So I've got that kind of closing on some support. Microsoft closing on support there at 433.30. What about Apple? Apple could come down a little bit more. Tesla kind of breaking back down. Not impulsive enough to consider that a complete breakdown. It's too close to that trend line that I have. If you look at the weekly, look at that. Resistance popped above for a couple weeks, still there. It's still holding as resistance. So, little intra-week pop, but in general, still weak and still at resistance, and I'd be looking for another push to the downside. Just needing to see a little more selling. A breakdown on next week would likely indicate that, this was a false breakout on the weekly or intraday daily chart basically, and then down we go. So, and then Meta. Let me see here. Meta, go down to the daily chart. You hit that support right there at 458. I had that marked out pretty clean. That's also this gap, this big gap right there. We hit that and then bounced off of that. Running into resistance, it could go up a little more. So, if we do get that rally situation, this will probably rally a little more to the upside. Otherwise, I'd look to the next sell signal comes on a break of this level or rallies into resistance, which, I see right here at about 493-ish or a back test of this trend line here. That's, either one of those are objective areas to short or a break of that support. All right, so that's basically the mega caps. There's really not too much that's, there. A couple, trade ideas, LLY. This one, this has been kind of it's been a mania stock because of this Ozempic or that Ozempic. I don't know how you pronounce it, but the miracle pill. It's obviously had a good rally. Look at this support shelf right here. You can see support or resistance. You know, it was resistance for a long time. Then it broke out. That's a breakout. Coming down, there's a trend line to watch. You know, nice clean trend line. Closing Friday pretty much at support. Okay, so that's it. It's at support. It's not objective to short. I did short this thing as it broke. There was a little trend line I was watching there. I erased it, but it was kind of marching up here. It broke here. I shorted it. I figured it would come down to that trend line. We did. Cover the short. Went home flat on it. Could bounce. Could break. I would lean towards a bounce, I guess, because you're at support. You're at a major trend line. It's at support. I'd lean towards a bounce. But if it breaks, then, you know, down it goes. And then this divergence, this negative divergence is, you know, it's pretty extended. So I think we're going to break. And what I've been seeing in a lot of these stocks, we've been breaking with like major gap downs. Like if I go to some of these short trade ideas I put out, like look at this Domino's one. I didn't catch this move because we hit support basically right in here, and it was right before earnings, so it was pretty high risk. But if you wrote it out through earnings, big old gap down. So this was a short that was pointed out. This one, Chipotle, we shorted this thing. I believe I shorted it on the back test of resistance. That looked like a good short to me. And then, you know, coming close to the 200 days. So earnings coming up. Maybe it gaps down on earnings. What else is interesting? I think this SMCI looks good, you know, although maybe they want to rally into this resistance. But this resistance line seems to be a pretty solid line that I think is going to continue to put pressure on this thing to the downside. So I like that one. I'm watching this one. I haven't pointed it out on the private member group or really the channel, the videos, but I'm watching it. And GE, we could adjust this trend line, maybe adjust it down, I guess. But it's right in this area, really. I feel like it's like right there. You know, this support shelf. It's sitting on support, but divergence, just momentum's dropping. So pretty sure what's going to happen is, I guess on earnings, I don't know, because earnings is coming up next week on the 23rd. So maybe, I guess a gap down to this trend line is what I'd have to lean towards. 10% drop or so. Could take out the trend line, obviously. You know, it breaks the trend line. That's a major sell signal. So I'm watching that one. All right, that's all I got. Let me get into your guys' stuff. Nikola. So this is just, you know, power, or this is the a car company. I don't know. This one is junk stock, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is garbage. I mean, it's a downtrend, right? So why would I love this? You know, like I don't want to short it because it's already like blown out, you know? I mean, you know, so the only trade, there's no bullish divergence, you know, there's just downward momentum, downward price action. That's it. It's just down. That's all I see. But I'm not interested in really shorting it. To me, there's no trade there. Natural gas, Tesla, already covered that one. Natural gas, let me look at that one. UNG. This is what I've got. I was looking at it, I think on Friday, seeing if there was something there. Got this little downtrend line here. I probably need to adjust that to right about there. I think it's just sitting there at at resistance. You do have bullish divergence here on the hourly. Okay, let me go over to the daily. technically have bullish divergence on the daily too. This looks like a divergent low there on the daily. No buy signals yet, so I think we need to see maybe a breakout of this trend line, this downtrend line, and that would be a buy signal. Then it could run 1802 potentially for a push up, maybe more, but for now we'll just go with that. So no buy signal quite yet. What's Dell look like? So there's the trend line I have on Dell on the daily coming down to the trend line. Again, this was a divergent high. They pumped this thing on earnings and AI hype. And if you bought into that hype or the earnings pump, you're down. So again, that's why we don't chase stuff. You're down 30%. Coming down to the more major trend line. So that's support. Until that goes, that is support. I think it'll go, but it doesn't mean we can't put in another divergent high. So you need to see a break of that trend line for a more major sell signal. Potential for an island cluster top, because you did gap up. Could be a cluster, and if you gap down, breaking the trend line, that would be an island cluster top. Okay, so all right. So that's what I have on that one. Kyle, let me look at yours. Nike. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that. Nike. Still looking for that 69 support or get long here. Well, let me look. Yeah, so there's that support that I had marked out. Nah, I don't see any reason to get long. What I would do, I would still be looking for that 69. Well, it's actually, I got it like 68, but right in there. You mark it out on your calendar or on your chart. It's right about, it's like 68 basically. But what I would do is if you're looking to get long, because I don't see enough here to get long. I mean, the PPO is pretty oversold, but there's no divergence, and the RSI has mild divergence, but it's not that well defined. So I'd mark out on your hourly, you could mark out something like, let me grab the right tool. I don't know, maybe something like this. It's, yeah, right in there. And if you break out from there, you're gonna probably start to push for a gap fill. But I don't see anything yet, so. Fastly. So you've got bullish divergence. You can see the momentum is starting to increase. You have this big gap down. Maybe there's a potential for a gap up, which would be an island cluster bottom. All right, there's the potential for that. Obviously, you'd need to see that gap up. But if you see the gap up, just trade it like an island cluster bottom, which would, you'd basically just set a stop on a, basically allow them, they might come down and, break the lows, but in general, you'd want to look, if they're going to break the lows, just barely, right? I'd be okay with that. Much beyond that, you'd stop out on your long. So if it gaps up, you could take the trade and then stop out on much below the lows there on a daily close. Otherwise, you could take the long. It's not really a trend line. So that's all I have. No buy signals. Coin. Did Bitcoin run last week? I thought I heard someone say it did, but I don't know. I don't trade Bitcoin. So, looking at this one. I don't see anything. I think those lines that I had, I think you're gonna push up and take out these highs, put in a divergent high, and then maybe roll over. But I don't see any. I don't see any clues that it's gonna come down. And so as far as I can tell, it's gonna push up and take out those highs. And if that's a divergent high, then it would probably break and come down to this more major trend line. But for now, I don't see anything telling me it's going to come down right now. Can I look at the weekly chart of Hawaiian Electric? Well, I think I looked at this last week. That's a big breakout. What happened here on the daily? Yeah, this is, I don't know what this is, but you know, there's your trend line, there's your breakout. So if I, you know, that I didn't have an alert set, or I just didn't see it, but you know, I did point that out as resistance, and you know, you broke out. Look, you broke out right there. That is a breakout. The next day they back tested, but you still held, and then boom. And really, I mean, like, if you didn't buy it here on the breakout, or you got shook out on the little back test they tried to do, because it still held that, then this day, obvious impulsive buying, closing above the 200-day moving average after breaking out of a downtrend, it's just obvious basically. And so, you know, now you got this big, huge push, this big gap up of 37%. So now let's see what we got going on. I don't know. Was there like a court case? I assume this is something to do with them not being held liable of damages or something. I don't know. Maybe there's some news. So there's that's big resistance up ahead. And obviously you got this gap. Everybody's going to be eyeing this, so I don't think it's going to just run and fill that gap, you know. I think it could push up a little more up to this, near this gap. I'd put good chances that you get a big strong pullback as you get close to this gap entry. It's just so obvious that you should, you know, and then maybe you're going to come down and fill this gap, and then maybe you're going to push up, but it's going to take some time. These gaps, this big obvious gap, could take a long time to get filled. So, you know, maybe the trade's a little more upside, and then that would probably be it. But, you know, you're up 37% in one day, so don't get greedy. If you are long, you know, if you bought this breakout right here, you're up on that one basically like 60% in like 5 days. It's like, take your money and run. Would be my suggestion. But all right, so that's that one. Intel, that one still looks bullish, I'm pretty sure. Oh, big pullback there actually. Okay, broke that support line. I don't know. I think it's probably a buy the dip, to be honest. Right here at this 32.30. That's support. This looks fine to me. I think you come back, hit that, and then push up to this trend line. I'd be looking more for a buy the dip, to be honest. This is bullish divergence. You got a little push. I think there's another push. That's how I'd be looking at it. Support is about 32.50. You don't have to wait for it to get to the exact penny. Usually you want to step in a little early, so that one looks okay. EA. Oh, hold on. Electronic Arts, EA. So this is the support that I have. You might be able to, yeah, it's really right about there. closing at support on Friday. So momentum looks fine too. I mean, you see this, like the momentum's still kind of up, so it doesn't have divergence. So I don't know. That looks like a buy to me right there. Looks like a long. Yeah, I don't see a short here. You break this upward trend line, then maybe, that would be a sell signal. But as of right now, that's closing on support. I mean, you have negative divergence on the hourly right here. But that was this, and that leads you to that. That's where you got that. So I think that's, you're at more major support on the daily chart. So the daily chart should take precedence, which tells me it's a buy the dip. If that breaks, that could be a sell signal. But as of right now, right on support. All right. Estee Lauder, I don't know what the symbol is on that one. MOS. Oh, yeah, this one. I did adjust this one, the wedge, it's not the perfect wedge because you got the top and then there's just not a ton, I've got one reaction here and now I have two, but previously, it was kind of, I had it like that, but then that kind of throws that out, which I think that could be it still. I'm still okay with that, which would mean it's a breakout and a back test. So it looks okay, honestly. Maybe a little more upside to help confirm, but and then I did adjust it just to see like, okay, what does it look like if I capture the tops? And and in that situation, it's not a break. It's like hasn't broken out yet, so I don't know. Not my favorite chart, but I think it looks okay. This to me maybe fits better. So I think the downside's limited, to be honest, but yeah, still not 100% confident on it. And then if I look at like NTR, which I believe is pretty similar, this one looks okay too. I mean, it still looks like, and see, this wedge is a lot better. I mean, look at that wedge. It's just way better. Tons of reactions on that one. So that looks like a breakout, back test, push, back test, up. So, I mean, I like that one. I think it's going to push up to 69-ish, basically. A-Bus. So negative divergence. Is this Airbus? I don't know what this is, but biotech. I'd probably give it the benefit of the doubt and come down and take it. So pushing up above support, negative divergence, no sell signals. Kind of near resistance, and maybe you come down to that support, but all right. VIX looks like it's gonna break out, but well, the thing with the VIX is the SPY, right? So just look at the SPY. SPY's at support. If that breaks, the VIX should spike. And I did notice that Friday people were buying the VIX. They're buying some put protection. So see, it's up 4%. So maybe that's telling us that the SPY is going to break. What did bonds do? No real bid in bonds. Usually you'd see if institutions were buying, you'd probably see a bid in bonds as a safety play. I'm not really seeing that, so I don't know. I just watch the SPY. If the SPY breaks, the VIX should spike. If it breaks and you get the daily close, if they gap it down and recover it as like a little false breakdown, you know, the VIX is not going to spike. But if it breaks and you get the confirmation based on the daily close, you should see the VIX spike because you've got major break in an uptrend line. All right, I already covered Nvidia and Apple. Yeah. See, Hawaiian Electric reached a settlement per the news, so that's it, you know. And at that point, like, it could go a little higher, but it's priced in. That settlement thing's priced in now. You know, it's pretty much instantly priced in on that big gap up. So I don't know. I'd probably sell the news, you know. I'd take my profit on that. Well, looks like that's all I've got. So if there's anything else, you know, unless there's anything else, I'll just go ahead and wrap up. I mean, there's not a ton to really go through. Some of the ones I really like that just are kind of hanging out. They just, like Costco looks like a good short. It's just not there quite yet. I've got it kind of adjusted that, but I think I've got it sitting right there at support. So once that breaks, we should see that flush out. And you know, this is the wedge that I have, so that, you know, pushes us down. That's why I've got these lines marked out. 741 for a measured target, and the 200 probably meet up. So I like that for a short. Once I get just a little bit more downside, about a 12%, 11.5%, depending on when you can get it. So that one's good. This ANF, I think, is done. You can see this uptrend line, big kind of buying climax or push up on earnings, negative divergence, and closing Friday at support, though. So right there, which is that big breakout candle. The bulls are going to try to hold that. So maybe a little bounce here. But once that gets taken out, I think we got some good downside. And then, yeah, probably a push all the way down to this trend line, wherever that is. So I like that one. Just need to maybe a little bounce, and then we'll break. And then what else is GM? Nah, another divergent high. Divergence. This one's probably about done. Watch that trend line right there. We don't need this anymore. So I'd watch that trend line. And a break of that trend line would be the sell signal, and then you'll probably come fill some of these gaps. I think you're probably gonna push on down. There's a big gap way down here, so maybe down there. It's pretty big, but I would say right there. I like that one. A push down into that gap, 35.69-ish would be pretty decent. So depending on when you break the trend line, then I think you're going to push down for, you know, that drop. IONQ. Kind of a junk stock. Just trending down. I mean, just, you know, don't have to really overlook it. You've got a downtrend. Kind of wedging, you know, but that wedge can continue. I just see a downtrend. I mean, that's a bullish divergence there on the PPO, not quite on the RSI. So I don't know. It might want to come down and put in a new low. It's what I would do if you like it for a long. I'd want to either buy at support, which is down here, or buy on a breakout of that. Anything in between that, I'm just not interested. All right. So that's it on that one. Carvana. This will be my last one, guys. I'm gonna get going. Carvana. Negative divergence. These are divergent highs. So I think they're, we're coming to the end of whatever this move is up here. This trend line here was intact, but it's been kind of violated at this point with this price action. So I almost have to just get rid of it. This uptrend line's still there. So I don't know. If I had to guess, we're going to work our way down to this trend line. And then, I don't know. At that point, I think we'll break the trend line, but, maybe work our way down and then we'll see how things look. That would be a drop of 15 or so %. You're likely, at minimum, going to get some sort of a bounce there. Bulls that are bullish are going to try to hold this trend line. And they'll buy the dip, so that, as it dips and hits that support, they'll be in there buying. So you probably get it. Doesn't mean you're going to get a new high, but I think you at least get some sort of a couple-day reaction bounce, and then maybe you break. So, okay, that's all I got, guys. So have a good weekend. I will catch you on Monday.